Everybody will have different cards, but they are from the same deck. And the symptoms are essentially histamine-mediated inflammatory expressions of how your body breaks down. And so by the way, speaking of histamine, we're talking about inflammation, and the inflammation is the body's attempt to repair itself. But if you have blocking factors within, then the repairs are not progressing. And if you have nutritional problems, let's start with the gut. If you have a gut problem, which starts with the microbiome being destroyed by the chemicals and other effects. Anyway, once you have that, then you're leaking all kinds of stuff into the body that the immune system is busy dealing with.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Integrative Health Podcast with Dr. Jen. Today, we're going to have a really fascinating conversation with Martin Pytela. He became a health coach after overcoming serious health challenges. And many great healers have their own hero journey stories overcoming difficult and often life-altering challenges. Martin's health difficulty was dramatically altered for the worst when at age 25, he got 12 Mercury amalgam fillings. Those are those silver fillings. Determined to reclaim his well-being, Martin embarked on an amazing lightning path of self-discovery. For 10 years, he immersed himself in a wealth of knowledge, reading thousands of pages of literatures and reports before the internet and ChatGPT in pursuit of holistic healing. Armed with newfound insights and fueled by a relentless spirit, he invested over $100,000 into his journey towards restoration. In 2001, Martin traded his career as management consultant for building a health coach business called Life Enthusiast and a superfood manufacturing business called Exola. Today, Martin's legacy helps people discover how genetics and lifestyle intersect to create either illness or health. His steadfast commitment to healing, deep empathy, and tireless dedication serves as a beacon of inspiration for those navigating their journey towards vibrant health and vitality. Welcome, Martin. Super excited to have you here today.
It's a pleasure, Jen, or Dr. Jen. How formal do you want to go?
Oh, Jen's fine. So, right. Martin, I want to hear about your health journey and 12 amalgams at once, and just talk about all of it, because there's so much that probably to unpack in that. First of all, why did you need all of those fillings? Then you had to deal with mercury burden of heavy metals. So that's a lot to unpack.
Yeah. Looking back at the experience from the distance of 50 years, I now have plenty of wisdom about it. And it's the way I would say it is that health insurance was the worst thing that could have happened to me. I got my health insurance and I walked into the dentist's office and I said, I need a checkup. And they said, do you have insurance? And I said, yes, I do. And the next thing was a bunch of x-rays, and I had no understanding. I was a kid from Eastern Europe who showed up and didn't understand stuff. I trusted the guy with the diploma on the wall and the white coat to do the right thing for me. He did the right thing for his pocketbook. He sold me a whole bunch of fillings. And then the sales job was, well, you can have the white ones or you can have the silver ones. To which I said, any difference? And they said, no, that the silver ones will last twice as long and the white ones will cost you extra. And I said, anything else? Nope, same deal. I just didn't know. Mercury, silver, amalgam filling. They called it silver filling, just like you did. It's the most toxic thing you can put in your human body. So there I was, 2 weeks apart, one quadrant at a time, 3 fillings each side. And after the first set, I had a herpes breakout. After the second set, I had a huge flu that I never had before. After the third set, my wrists started hurting. I ended up with carpal tunnel syndrome, plantar fasciitis. Then my back went out. Then I got allergies. Then I got gum recession, periodontal disease, weight gain, and then my back went for good. Like I was face down on a recliner because I couldn't sleep on my back, and I would roll off of it and crawl to the toilet and do my business and crawl back, blah, blah, like that. So, the whole blooming of the body going to pieces. And then The orthopedic surgeon gave me a cortisone shot. Cool. Lasted 6 weeks. I was back to starting or worse. The chiropractor was competent. He would adjust me, put things back in place. But because my tissues were breaking down, I wouldn't hold the adjustment. So I had to keep coming back every 3-4 days to be put back together. And at times, couple times a year at least, I would have a significant catastrophic health event that would just put me out for 2-3 weeks. Anyway, like that.
Yeah, and it's so hard. You go to a doctor and they have the training. A lot of them have a lot of experience, which is more important than training. But you don't know who you're getting. You don't know if you're getting like a baby doctor, someone experienced. And you also don't know, honestly, looking just at moral, points, like we're sinful creatures, right? We live in a fallen world and you don't know their intentions. So it's hard. It's hard to have that discernment, especially when you feel vulnerable, and you're just trying to do the best for your health. So it's, I've been burned by doctors too. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to be a doctor that doesn't cause harm. But it's really hard. And some of these doctors, dentists, some of them are doing the best that they know, the best that they can, but no one can know everything.
Yeah, totally.
It's so hard.
Yeah, I hold no malice towards the fellow. He did what he was trained to do.
Right.
It really is like that. The standard of care that's pushed onto the doctors, they're just mechanics in a system doing what they're told to do. As I opened up with, it's the insurance industry that's actually controlling what the people in the system will do. And that's the worst of it, because you don't get what you need. You get what's approved.
Yes. And that's a great point too. And how would you explain to people listening out there, like how to just get out of the headspace of it has to go through insurance, and instead, like I tell my patients, use insurance as a tool, use it for a safety fall in case you get, into an emergency situation, but it's not health care, it's not actual health.
Yeah, there goes. Well, the Rockefeller Carnegie medicine that ran off with the ownership of this system is based on pushing pharmaceuticals, which are essentially petroleum-based patented medicines, all of which are emergency tools to save you from dying or to, at minimum, suppress your symptoms. They do not build health. That's not where health comes from. So you said it well. They own the emergency room. I honor them for how well they're able to save my life when I need saving. But at the same time, they're just horrendously bad at preventing me into getting into these catastrophic situations. That's not where health comes from. No.
Yeah. If you don't mind, can you go in a little bit more of the history of the Rockefellers and how this happened? How medicine became about money and insurance models and pharmaceuticals and away from what it should have been.
Yeah, well, it started around 1910 and 1915 when they decided that they're going to own the world. In 1913, the bankers met at Jekyll Island and created Federal Reserve and got it pushed through. It's a whole other story that everyone should learn about. The medical industry got taken by the Pfleghaar report. Rockefeller and Carnegie got together, hired the Pfleghaar brothers. They figured out how to corner everything, and they used the tool of foundation. A charitable foundation is a targeted tool that funds a university, and they started slanting everything in such way that the research they supported would support their ideas, which is a patented medicine. So herbology and osteopathy and chiropractic and homeopathy and traditional Chinese and whatever else, all of those other disciplines were declared to be unworthy, unscientific. And so instead of practicing treat the person, they started treating the illness, the symptom. And that is a direction that produces statistics. And if you look at the statistics of today, I think they have indicted themselves. The results suck.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so sad to think, but I mean, if you look around, everything is driven by money. We saw this during the pandemic with the evolution of the jab and all of that. So
Yeah.
people are waking up to this. So I think if someone's like, I'm ready for a change, but I don't know how to do it or where to start, what would you say to them?
Yeah, that's the biggest issue here. Personal agency. Am I going to own the outcome? I would say I blame no one for getting ill, but at the same time, I need to tell them it's totally up to you to get well. You will not get well asking others to do it for you. Wellness or health is something that you build from within. It does not come from out there. It comes from in here. So it's the homeostatic system within your body that will build health, and you need to remove the blocking factors. So when I look at it, I just group it together. I talk about toxicity, malnutrition, stagnation, and trauma as the major groups of things that you need to be aware of that will have to resolve the problems that are blocking the homeostatic system from building health. And toxicity, that's the consequence of living in this modern industrial world of the chemicals that are coming in, heavy metals, herbicides, pesticides, volatile organic compounds, forever chemicals, plastics, smelly things, all that stuff that's in your air, water, food, cosmetics, furnishings, you name it, all that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it goes back to medicine and, telling us that we need something, right? Like when I grew up, I thought I would need antibiotics or I needed to take Motrin or Tylenol. And when I became a doctor, I'm like, oh, I know what drug to go with the symptom. And then when I went into integrative medicine, I'm like, now I just look for the root cause for everything. And like you said, treating basic blocks is the key. And everyone's so like we were talking about this earlier off camera. Everyone is an expert on the internet on hormones and peptides now. Everyone is. And I'm like, wait. You have to start with the basics soon. I know it's not like fun or exciting to like talk about sleep and removing toxins as we're going to dive into, but it has to be done, or otherwise you're just piling it on. And I would love for you to talk specifically about some of those factors and why it's so important to look at those first.
Okay, well, I mentioned the toxicity, right? There are ways that the toxicity within you will block the normal expression of healing. And if you don't remove those toxic things, they will forever block the expression. Like mercury was my thing. It totally wrecked my thyroid. It wrecked my discs and tendons and my brain. I was living with brain fog and anxiety and blah, 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 symptoms, right? Like each one of the listeners will have their own set of symptoms, and it will seem so strange that one person has symptom A, another person has symptom B. It's sort of like playing cards. I shuffle the deck, I'll deal 12 cards to each of the players. Everybody will have different cards, but they are from the same deck. And the symptoms are essentially histamine-mediated inflammatory expressions of how your body breaks down. And so by the way, speaking of histamine, we're talking about inflammation, and the inflammation is the body's attempt to repair itself. But if you have blocking factors within, then the repairs are not progressing. And if you have nutritional problems, let's start with the gut. If you have a gut problem, which starts with the microbiome being destroyed by the chemicals and other effects. Anyway, once you have that, then you're leaking all kinds of stuff into the body that the immune system is busy dealing with. And until you fix that, you're forever broken. And so if you wake up with a flat belly, but by lunchtime you look pregnant, there's stuff going on in your small intestine that just should not be going on.
Oh my
There are symptoms.
Yes. Like I can't stand when people normalize like a bloated belly by the end of the day. No, that is a warning sign. And I'll ask patients like, they'll talk about bloating. And I'm like, well, do you wake up with a flat stomach and by the end of the day you feel more bloated? And they're like, yes. And I'm like, girl, I got you, because that used to be me when I had small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And
Right.
every symptom is a sign. It's not a sign to run out and go buy Tums or antacids, right? It's a beautiful sign that something is wrong, because our body, we're supposed to function well and have energy. And it's so hard to bring this up, because unfortunately it takes effort, right? It does take a little effort on our part to be in homeostasis because of the toxic world.
Well, there's a lovely lecture that has a professor asking students if the jar is full after he filled it with golf balls.
Yes.
And they say, oh, looks full. So he starts pulling marbles and stuffing marbles into the spaces and asking, is this full? And they're starting to catch on, because now he's pulling out BBs, tinier balls, and pushing it into the spaces. Is this full yet? Well, some sand gets in. You can keep filling the jar until all of the spaces are packed. The moral of this story is you can never fill the jar with all this stuff if you do not start with the biggest and going to the smaller. Like if you start with the sand and fill it, you'll never get the golf balls in. In this metaphor, first things first. And I named them. In my world, I call it stagnation, trauma, toxicity, malnutrition. There are other ways to group things. It's just a way of thinking about it. But I need to make sure that all the toxic things are out of you and out of your environment. All the nutritional bits that are missing, that are not allowing you to express fully, need to be found and brought in. Stagnation is a horrible thing. You can look at Jen. She's moving. Why is she moving? Oh, she's exercising her lymphatic system, and she's helping her body to keep homeostasis. If you don't move enough in your 24 hours, you're going to stagnate. And stagnation is the antithesis to life. And lastly, trauma, which all the invisible stuff. I would start from Wi-Fi, which is traumatizing all of us by its invisible effect, and we just keep ignoring it. And then, of course, there are the traumatic events, which could be either massive emotional disasters or steady drip of stress, which, again, modern days, urban life, if you put yourself behind the wheel of a car, you need to be vigilant. Well, being vigilant means that you put yourself into the fight or flight mode. So however long your commute is, you're in fight or flight. That's not a good thing. You are raising your blood pressure, you're shutting down your immunity, you're shutting down your digestion, all of that stuff that will raise your blood pressure and make you less able to go to sleep, for example.
Wow. I didn't even think about driving, being in a sympathetic state.
Yeah, you have to be vigilant, right?
Yeah, you do. I mean, because your life depends on it. It's very interesting, because my husband now travels a lot for work, and he's driving so much. And it's interesting because he's gained some weight and has some GI stuff. Some of it's diet, but I'll have to bring that up. I'll have to get him into some more parasympathetic things. That's really interesting about commute and driving, because I always thought of it as just the stagnation sitting, but it's more than that.
It is that for sure. Sitting is not your friend. Okay.
Well, interesting, Martin, just to be weird about this topic, just this is how my mind goes. But I'm wondering if Teslas, yes, you have the Wi-Fi, that's, you have all the EMFs, which is awful, and the battery and all that, but you don't have to be as alert because they have self-driving mode. And, it's we have to drive for my kid's ALF appointment today. And I'm like, I think I might take my husband's Tesla so I don't have to be as aware, because it really is nice. It just keeps you there. So what do you think? I mean, I'm just thinking out loud about this. I wonder if the risks and benefits
Well, I am a real fan of the self-driving car and not having to drive. I mean, I use all the driving aid I can get, the cruise control, so I don't have to watch speed and blah, blah, blah. Just reduce the stressors to the max, right? So when you have the aware machine that tells you that there's a danger or that it auto brakes for you, you can let go of the fear, constant fear, right? There's going to be a kid going to run out with a ball, chasing a ball. You can stop worrying about that. That's the big one. So the Wi-Fi, well, there are antidotes. We now do have, like in our business, we offer a product called Blue Shield, which sends out this PHI wave. It's a harmonizing wave that talks to your autonomic nervous system and asks it to stay calm, remain stressed, not pushed, just stay out in the parasympathetic, which is a big deal. Anyway, so there is help. I don't know if Tesla will ever invent something like that, but we can certainly bring one of these things, plug it in, and be protected within that space. Or in my home where, when I turn on my phone, I see 15, 20 antennas from my neighbors. So
Right.
I'm never safe from it anymore, anywhere.
Right. Well, we just moved in, like we can't even get internet out here and the service is terrible. So yeah, we have Starlink, but I love it. Like I feel different. Or so say like I've had to go to Vegas a lot in the past few years for conferences. I feel so dysregulated from all the Wi-Fi and all the stimulation. I use counter things, I use like red light therapy and stuff. But yeah, I mean, you can feel it. And I think the biggest thing, to learn from this podcast is you need to be aware of it and you need to know that these things can harm you. So then you can pay attention to how you feel.
Yeah. There's science that supports these statements. Dr. Martin Pytela, P-A-L-L, PhD, puts out a bunch of reports that show about voltage-gated calcium channels, which is when you push the frequency of the 4G and 5G toward the human physiology, it triggers and releases calcium. Calcium is the signaling mineral for fight or flight, or the sympathetic. So when you're flooding your cells with calcium, you're shifting toward this fight or flight. I have clients who tell me I'm driving toward the smart grid downtown and sense of doom and foreboding washes over me. That's your emotional world going sympathetic, fight or flight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we can really get stuck there. We really have to know. And I'm sure you working with tons of clients and that you've noticed that this stress and this parasympathetic and sympathetic imbalance, it's a huge block to healing. So that's why it's so important to talk about, because many people, it's not that they're in denial. I think they also go to a conventional doctor and they're just gaslit. So then they just shut that down, that could even be a problem.
Yeah. So the big trick in my world is that we have found that food, specifically a combination of macronutrients, which are carbohydrate, fat, and protein, the big boulders, the three main nutrients that you have in your food. Depending on which type you are, you can have dominance that makes you alkaline with fats or that makes you acidic with fats. And the opposite makes you alkaline with carbs or makes you acidic with carbs. And depending on which you are, when you acidify, that's a drive toward excitement, but then either anger or anxiety, depends how you direct it. It's the fight or flight. Whereas the alkalinity, that's you go into procrastination, you're more pleasant, you're less excited, you're not easily triggered, but then you start getting lazy, later with more despondent, and with even more depressed. So there are extremes, right? One extreme would be anxiety, shaking in the boots, unable to sleep. The other one would be depression, refusing to get out of bed. Well, depends on your dominance. You could wake up too alkaline or too acidic and have different tools to get out of it toward the middle where you have more flexibility. And that's just not generally understood or talked about.
Right. And this, so how would you know? And this is the biological individuality that you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
So how would you know where you sit? Is this something that you could figure out on your own?
The original researchers were doing it through measuring the venous blood pH after eating. So they would do a glucose challenge and a lipid challenge. So in the glucose challenge, well, you can do it at home. Just eat a banana with some porridge, carb with carb. If you really want to push it, have some alcohol with it. And there goes your carbo push. And it will either sedate you or it will stimulate you, right? To the point of really being dysregulated, anxious. So one of the two. And then you reconfirm with a fat protein. So have yourself maybe an omelet with some bacon on top and maybe some veggies with olive oil. Just skip the carbs. No rice, no potato, no bread, no whatever. Just no starch with that. And that will show you how you react to high fat, high protein. And it will be 180 opposite to what carbs will do to you. And then you get to decide how much of each goes into your balanced state. Because on this space, if you would define this sort of flatland of happy in the middle, but dysregulated at the margins, well, you have different vectors that will bring you toward the middle. So that's the secret sauce of metabolic typing, is where we are able to help you understand what you should do. Each one of us has a different combination, but it's understandable, knowable. And when I finally shine the spotlight on it, when you realize, oh yeah, it's from that, then you can control it.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And do you think, from how you're looking at it, is it more of a glucose regulation and how your body responds, like from an insulin standpoint, or do you see it as something different, or both?
I think it's genetic. I think it has to do with how your ancestors, where they lived, and visualize this. So a boy is born somewhere on the prairies in an Indian tribe that follows the buffalo. They are on buffalo everything, and for winter they store some pemmican, which will be bear fat and dried berries. So there will be some antioxidants, but mostly they'll be just on a keto diet. Heavy. And genetically, every kid is born into that food resource. So if your genetics are a match, you thrive. If they're a mismatch, you don't. And the next infection that runs through the village or tribe will wipe out the ones that are not strong. So as an opposite, let's try something in North Africa, where we have a Bedouin living on dates, figs, pomegranates, camel milk, that sort of thing. Starch. Very different diet. So you will be adapted to that food resource. So then you try to transplant that Bedouin into the North American experience, and they'll have a hard time, right? People from the warm climate who are used to eating fruits and whatnot year round don't do well in Norway, where you have a growing season of 90 days and you're going to be eating dried cod and fresh salmon. Just not compatible.
Very interesting. Because when I work with women, a lot of women, they just become more insulin resistant, and we have to cut the carbs out. And maybe they should have been eating lower carb to begin with. So it's kind of interesting. So how do you see, when you look at this biological individuality, how have you noticed patterns between men and women, and does it change across their lifespan?
And the difference, no, I think it's not gender-based. And menopause will change women for sure. There's definitely a shift there. Women in reproductive age have this hormone drive that is modifying things. And at menopause, that kicks out. So when a gal was able to eat all she wanted until she was 45, and all of a sudden she's putting on belly fat like it's out of style, she just kicked off from one dominance to another. And there's endocrine dominance, which I didn't mention, of which there are 4. We recognize thyroid, adrenal, pituitary, and ovarian. And the thyroid dominant people tends to be slender built, like myself or you would be putting on weight with starch, but we would be tempted by eating starchy foods. And we would, slender wrists, slender ankles, taller rather than not, chest not that deep. Anyway, the adrenal type is built like weightlifter. The linebackers on the football team are all the adrenal types. And when they put weight on, it's not on the belly, it starts on the chest, shoulders. They're boxy and big. And their temptation food is savory, not starchy. And the thyroid type will get slim on a keto diet. The adrenal type will put on weight on that very diet.
This is really interesting. So that was the thyroid and the adrenal glands. There was ovarian.
Pituitary tends to be the intellectual of the group. They tend to be known as the kapha force in the doshas of the Ayurvedic. Their head tends to be bigger than what you would expect for the body. They put on weight. If they put on weight, they look like Cabbage Patch Doll or Pillsbury Doughboy. They blubber all over. But they tend to be smart, and their temptation food is creamy ice cream, whipping cream, yogurt, that sort of thing. But their health food is organ meats. So that would be liver, heart, tongue, high purine, bison, that sort of thing.
Okay. And then the ovarian.
Well, the ovarian, it's the hot food like Tabasco, the cayenne, that stimulates the ovaries that put extra estrogen into the woman's body. So she will develop extra feminine characteristics. So bigger hips, wider, whatever. Men will find that super attractive because they look really feminine and they can eat endless amounts of hot food. And if they overdo it, they'll be like 2 sizes bigger from waist down than they are from waist up. Surprisingly wide hips.
Yeah.
The Kardashian got it by surgery, not by eating hot food, but that kind of look.
Interesting. Okay, so can men be ovarian type? Probably not.
No, they don't have ovaries. All men are testosterone driven.
Okay, so men are all, but they only have those 3 categories, and women has.
Well, yeah, plus testosterone, but they're equally testosterone. All men. Right. That's why they're so simple, right? Yeah. Men has only one switch, on and off.
24-hour cycle. It's consistent. Yeah. They're the same every day. Yeah. So what if you're listening to this and you're like, I might be a combination of the 2? You just, you're
primarily thyroid.
Interesting. Yeah. And so and I don't know if you knew this about me. So I had Hashimoto's thyroiditis. So I had thyroid problems, and really interesting because before my thyroid problems in puberty, I was like this, no hips.
Yeah. A stick.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. I remember in high school, people are like, she's anorexic. And I'm like, no, I ate a lot. But then I got Hashimoto's and my thyroid stuff and actually gained a lot of weight and inflammation.
Yeah, you were probably underfed iodine in your growing up years. There goes. Like, for example, the standard iodine dose is a nonsense because we're genetically not identical. And the thyroid types need easily 20, 40, 50 times more iodine than the adrenals.
Yeah, it's interesting because where I lived in Erie, Pennsylvania, it was called like the thyroid belt.
Yep.
You got nodules, but I had mercury fillings and and mono. And, it's so interesting because hindsight's 20/20 and you look back and I had a mold exposure and you're just like, oh, look at all these things. I'm glad I'm just healthy now. But,
yeah, totally. Yeah, I had similar story, right? Like I had hepatitis at 10, mononucleosis at 15, herpes at 18. You look at my eyebrows.
Oh, yeah.
Right? One of the sure signs is that the outer third or outer half of your eyebrows is starting to go away. The other sign is that the hair on your legs from your knees down is going away. Like in women, you don't notice it. You just say, well, I don't have to shave. Well, but when you're losing the body hair, that's a sign that your thyroid's going away.
Yeah. And, it's hard because right now with women, they're all getting their eyebrows tattooed. And I'm like, well, you won't be able to, it's like a warning sign when you're losing that hair there. So it can be tough. But yeah, I mean, I would say just like any abnormality, you need to search for the root cause. Like whether, like you brought up hair, we could talk about, if you don't sweat enough, if you don't have good energy, if you don't sleep well. I mean, these are all signs. And what people tend to do is they go to Instagram or TikTok and they just find a supplement to fix that, right? And that's just as bad as finding a medication, right? You have to figure out what is actually going on.
Yeah, the classic, right? Your migraine was not caused by the deficiency in Excedrin, and your breast cancer was not caused by deficiency in tamoxifen. All that, right? It's a well, I already named them, right? Toxicity, malnutrition, stagnation, trauma. Those are the conspiring soup. That's the melting pot of your problems. You need to fix your problems. Yours are different than mine. The input side is different, but the process remains. We need to identify all the blocking factors and fix that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not always easy or simple. Like, for example, I had a new patient consult this week and I'm like, from what they told me initially, I'm like, oh, this is just going to be hormonal. It's going to be super easy. And then they got into and they're like, and I have hives all over my body. And I'm like, oh, it's mold. I'm like, and just from doing it so much and you could see how mold was affecting her hormones and her liver is stagnant and her liver is not detoxifying. And it's just, and the weight is piling on because of all of this. And what had happened was she wasn't getting answers from conventional doctors. So she went to one of those websites that prey on perimenopausal women gaining weight and said it was just hormones. And she bought their program and did the hormone creams and it got worse, right? Because working on those things that you were talking about.
Yeah. Precisely. You cannot get into the weeds until you have taken care of the runways. Or I don't know, maybe I'm not using the right metaphor. It's the big stuff first. First things first. Oh, Stephen Covey. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Find that book. Came out in 1987. First things first. Understand what is important and look after that. And the important bits are, well, spirituality first, your emotional thinking or behavior, then your mind thinking, your habits, then air, water, food, cosmetics, all of the stuff in your life. Minerals and vitamins, that's like 10 or 12 on the list. Hormones, that will be 15. Yeah, you need the big important stuff first.
Yeah. And it's not always the fun stuff. It's not fun to go to bed early. It's not fun to eat good when other people are not. But yeah, those are the basics that you need first.
Yeah.
Let's just dig in to wrap up real quick on amalgams, mercury fillings again, and I'm sure there's people listening out there that have silver fillings in their mouth, and we call them amalgams, but they're the silver fillings, which is mercury. And just look in your mouth and see if you have any. So someone out there, they're like, yes, I have them. I don't know what to do or where to start. Could you help them out with that, or at least share your story about what you did?
What worked for me was so affordable, it's not even funny. It's called zeolite. Zeolite is a binder. It's electronegative, so the body will not reject it and hide it. The heavy metals are electropositive, and they are being pushed into low circulation tissues, fat, cartilage, bone. So zeolite is a binder. You put it in your body, you take it in as powder or capsules or liquid, and it just goes through, and whenever it runs into any heavy metals, grabs it, holds it, takes it out. There are more aggressive methods like TMPS or EDTA. They could be done intravenously or rectally. I don't know. I'm okay with zeolite. I was on zeolite for 20 years before I finally had my fillings taken out. And I was fine. I was able to heal myself on just making sure that I take enough of it to clear the toxic burden so that I'm not being triggered by the heavy metals.
Yeah, that's great because not people can't always afford these amalgam removals. That's
Yeah.
the word.
That's true. Going in, the fillings were $100 each. Coming out, they were $1,000 each.
Yeah, and it also breaks my heart because I see this with patients with breast implants, and
Yeah, that's a bad news too.
explanting is so expensive and insurance doesn't cover it. And I'm actually trying to work with some doctors to get an ICD-10 code for breast implant illness. It's like far, far in the future, but if we have that, then insurances would have to recognize it as a disease and help pay for the explant.
Yeah.
Because patients are getting informed consent about breast implants.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be just breast implant, other implants, which will include root canals and meshes for hernias and who knows what else. But what happens is it's a foreign body within that will attract bacteria or microbial terrains, or it will create microfilm. And within that milieu, there will be some kind of a challenge that will push against your immune system. It will include some kind of a drag on your ability to cope with other things.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's as I see it.
A block for health. And it's really hard because there is a lot of mesh out there too. Like I have a small umbilical hernia from my 3 pregnancies and it doesn't act up much, and I'm doing things to fix it because I will not get mesh. And a lot of surgeons just they just put it in because they want better outcomes and they don't want to deal with complications. And it's like, but you're putting mesh in without giving full informed consent. There is a mesh out there, I believe, that is made from animal product. If I can find it again, I will link it in the show notes. But there is an alternative, but not a lot of hospitals carry it because it's expensive. Same with contrast CT. I went down a rabbit hole with that. There's safer CT contrast for, CT scans. Say if you get an emergency room and you need CT, there's safer alternatives, but hospitals will not stock it because it costs more.
Yeah.
Makes me
speaking of contrast, right? Like gadolinium is one of the ones that really hit people hard. And we do have a gadolinium detox product. Okay.
Oh, great. Yeah. With I have a lot of post-breast cancer patients that still, or they're high risk and they do get MRIs with contrast. I do EDTA suppositories for about 8 weeks after.
Yep.
There's one study that said it helped bind. My mentor said it doesn't work well, but it's a hard one. And think of all these like young kids with cancer that get all of these surveillance, with gadolinium, and it's just storing in their bones. It's terrifying. So this is where it comes with informed consent, risk versus benefits. How do we detox from it? And this is where you need to press your doctor with this conversation or work with someone that will give you that true informed consent.
Yep. Yeah. Learning, knowledge. Be suspicious. The system is stacked against you in a horrendous way.
Yeah. And even another thing, like you don't have to make a decision right away if you go to your doctor's office or you go to your dentist. You can say, I'm going to think about this. I'm going to do my research and I'm going to make the decision later. And if they're offended by that, then you should probably just go to a different doctor, dentist, professional anyway. But I think that's really important. My family members will do that. They will think about stuff, come to me and ask me what I think. We'll research it together. We'll go through risk and benefits. And that is key. It's not something you need to make a quick decision about when we're talking about things like we were today, like fillings and implants and mesh and all of that.
Yeah. Well, reflecting back on my life, I didn't know that I didn't know. I simply trusted the professionals because I was primed to trust the professionals. I did not suspect that they were as ignorant as they turned out to be. And in many disciplines, they were either limited by their schooling or by their licensure. because a lot of these licensing bodies will limit the scope of what the person can do.
Yeah, that's a great point you brought up, because sometimes an option won't be offered to you because they can't provide it. And I see that all the way from health coaches, all the way to naturopaths, all the way to integrative doctors, all the way to conventional doctors. So that is where the honesty comes in. And not everyone is honest or has morals. So, they should be saying to you, hey, this would be the best option, but I don't offer it. So I want you to be with me so you can come back to me after you go there, or you can just go there, whatever is best for you. It's not a good business strategy, but for me, it's not about...
I sleep better.
Well, for me, it's kingdom based. Like, I want to do it for the kingdom. I don't want to do it for me. So
yeah, I can sleep better when I look at myself in the mirror in the morning. I don't feel like I don't know what's the word. I don't feel guilty for serving the client and just sending them where they need to go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well,
Yep.
Martin, I want to wrap up and just thank you so much for this great conversation, because you're brave to talk about a lot of things that we haven't talked about on the podcast yet. So I love that we dove into that. I would love for you to share your podcast and platform and your store and how those listening can work with you.
Right. The website where you find me is called Life Enthusiast, which is life-enthusiast.com. And the label we use is Life and Co, LIFE-NTCO. And that would be on Telegram, where I'm not censored, or YouTube, where I am heavily censored. And X, LIFE-NTCO, you'll find us there too.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for everything you're doing and all of your knowledge and you being enthusiastic for life and health.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for this.